Guys, it's happened. I've played Planet Coaster 2. That's right, the day has finally arrived. Frontier invited your favourite creators back for one more preview session, and this time we got to play the game. That's right, I actually got to play it. So, full disclosure, whilst I'm not being paid by Frontier to do this, that means my opinions are my own, I was invited as part of a private group to come and play the game. That session lasted 2 hours, and in that time we got to play one of the scenarios and then tinker around in Sandbox, and the footage that you're going to see in this video is from my actual session. I am going to post them as separate Let's Play videos, and before I do that I do just want to share my views with you on the game, especially as the fact that I need to get the other footage ready for you to actually watch, because trust me, it is not pretty. So in this video I'm going to be going over the things that I loved, things that I didn't like, and anything that I hated. And I mean, where to even begin? 2 hours seems like an absolute lifetime, but you can only scratch away at the surface. So to save your time, Planet Coaster 2 is awesome. Like, seriously awesome. In my footage I've tried to capture as much as I thought you would want to see, but don't expect a masterpiece build. What you can expect is to see my tism in full swing as I frantically click through menus, options, and trying things out. Nothing about my captured footage is going to be demure. Like I say, I'm going to publish them completely separately, so these are just my initial thoughts on the sequel with my highlights and takeaways. Now, we had the session split into two. We had a first playthrough of one of the weirdest scenarios I've played. It was basically designed specifically to make us play through pools rather than just click through fun stuff, and then there was a second where we had free reign in Sandbox just to click through and play until our heart's content. Now, other creators I spoke to have done lots of cool builds with their time. What nerds! This renegade spent his time clicking through everything to see what fun stuff I can use in the future, which, by the way, led me to achieving nothing beautiful by the end. Alright, so let's get down to business. What are the good things? First off, I need to throw this out there. This sequel is brat. This sequel is everything you wanted it to be and more. This sequel is a significant leap forward from the game, and whilst we might be used to all of the content we've got in the now finished game, this is not a City Skylines 2 style sequel. This is simply brilliant. Stand down, everybody. This is actually good. So the path tool's going to appear on all three lists, mostly because it's one of the biggest new features, probably beside pulls. Now, first off, the new mechanisms for the paths are incredible. It's seamlessly connected to each other. The stamp tool just worked. The line tool made placing longer paths much easier. The textures on the paths are proper lovely. The draw tool has got some limitations, but ultimately made for some really interesting Blazer style layouts. The old path tool is still there as well, just in case you want to use that. It works slightly differently, but it's ultimately there. You also had the option to auto-place things like bins and benches, as well as choosing whether the path had fences, and you've got a really nice selection of fences to choose from too. And the weirdo in me has a very strange favourite thing from that: custom height angles for paths. I found a way to turn off the angle snap for path height, and oh my god, it's a game changer. You are no longer bound to 11 degrees, and you can make those smoother coaster station exits that you have always wanted to do. If I find out, by the way, that I can do this in the original without mods and tricks, I am going on a rampage. Next up, the graphics. Oh wow, this game looks good. I was actually quite surprised with how good it is. It's like Zoo, but better. Everything is polished, everything's shiny, everything is smooth. It's a 2024 game. Next up, the water. By holy cosmic cow, the water is good. The underwater view in the pools is really nice. It does this little sploosh thing when you do. The terrain-based water, that looks amazing. The rough water is probably my favourite part of it. I very briefly tried out the sequencer just to see how that was going to go, and do you know what? Significant upgrade to what we have now. The ability to just slide all of the timers and edit it, just like video and music. Oh, it's perfect. It's just absolutely perfect. Alright, so the shops and stalls. We've actually got two entries for this one. There's one good and one bad. Firstly, the best part about the stalls is they actually exist. You know, those countertop ones that we've got in Zoo? They're actually in Planet Coaster, and they're going to allow us to do really good guest service buildings. I can't wait to use it. They are a nice addition to the portfolio of shops, and it also seems like every single one has got a vending machine companion too. So we've got loads of new brands coming in as well. I think my favourite is Viva La Vegan. I know it's just a brand, but it's just exciting to see something new. You know, like how Bernie's Bakes appeared in Zoo and was like, oh, something new and shiny. That's kind of how it feels. Of course, we've got returning favourites as well. We've got Chief Beef, Looney Balloons, that's fantastic. And weirdly, Heyo Sushi. Oh, and the information stall sells so much more stuff. Umbrellas, priority passes, all sorts. We finally got a reason to actually include them. It rained. Oh my god, it rained. And I didn't think it was going to because my time was running out and it wasn't even on the horizon. But right at the last minute, there it is. Sweet, sweet rain. From the sky and not an emitter. So the new coaster types, I couldn't get to see them all in detail, and believe me, I tried, but there are some amazing new features available to us. I couldn't find switch tracks. Well, I say couldn't find, I didn't really try to find them, but I did find drop tracks, the tilt piece and the sliding piece. The turntables on the water coasters, they're also really cool. The coaster builder seems to be as you remember once you get used to it, but the options and whatever are all in different places. If you want to see them all, I'm sure someone like Corvus has probably got you covered on that one. Next up, generic rides, and they are now a thing, and there are some amazing new types. My favourite from these were probably the Magic Carpet and the Monsoon Chute, plus that weird one from Drayton Manor, Zamperla one? I don't even know what it is, but it's amazing anyway. And the returning generically themed rides, they look really good too. Even the pirate ship looks good now. Then there's the customization of those flat rides. That is good too. We've got so many more options for decorations. We can colour individual bits. We've got patterns that we can use. We can attach scenery, which is nice. I didn't play with this scenery attachment stuff for too long. I had far too much other stuff to see. But flat rides are going to look so different now. They're just going to be so easily customizable. I'm so excited. Well, terrain textures. We have far more terrain textures in a single park. In fact, it looked like all of the available textures for that biome were already in the park. We seem to be missing concrete and tarmac as textures, but all of the other textures look fantastic. This is just another thing that seems quite similar to Zoo. The terrain textures are all based on a biome. There were 4 biomes available, but we were only allowed to play 1 today. And guys, don't tell Moomin about this one, but indoor darkness. I decided to try out what was going to happen if I actually enclosed the building completely, and then when I went inside, not entirely pitch black, but we do finally have a degree of darkness. Also, the resize and rescale tool just worked. It was actually good to be able to have an initial reaction of, oh, that's so big, and then scale it down to something that's actually more palatable to what I wanted to do with it. This one is another game changer. So moving on to the pools and slides then, they are actually quite good. We've got a good number to choose from, and I can also confirm that there are different exit types for each one of them as well. You don't actually need to have your slide end into a pool. You can have them ending into a trough instead. The pool stamp means that you can, as promised, make pools quickly and easily, and there didn't seem to be any restrictive requirements to them. You can just place the pool, place the changing rooms, and away you go. There's actually lots of fun things you can do with your pool, like inflatables, wave machines, diving boards. I'm actually a little bit excited about this one. I wasn't to start with, but I had a really good time playing with the pools. This next one is really quite niche from me. Some of the admin's done for you, like when you place down a lifeguard tower, the lifeguard's auto hired. I don't know why this was such a plus, but I'm running with it, guys. And broadly speaking, there are going to be some frustrations for you guys coming, but do you know what? The learning curve isn't massive. It's not a blocker. If you're familiar with the ideas from the original, you're gonna be okay in the sequel. It feels fairly familiar. You're just gonna need to learn the new ways of doing it. And this is a bit of a relief because while the game is a Planet Coaster sequel, it could have felt and behaved completely differently, and it doesn't. Everything you're used to is there. It's just in a different place. The entertainers have got a little bit of flack since the launch, but do you know what? They're actually really fun. Like, really fun. They're well crafted, they act stuff out, and they're fun to watch. They also come in randomly generated genders too. That was a really nice touch to see. So that's all the good stuff. Is there anything I didn't particularly like? Is there anything bad? Well, yes, but you'll be pleased to know this list actually isn't that great. And I mean, the majority of it could actually be put down to user error, something unfinished in the game, or just me being rushed in general. However, let's take a look at some of this stuff, shall we? Okay, this nearly made the ugly list, but it didn't because I like the feature. The implementation of facilities like water and power, it's a bit clunky. It needs some user experience testing. I get the premise of building a generator, building the distributor, and then connecting it, but the shops had all of this same little dot which suggested they all needed to be directly connected when they don't, and you need to be within the range of the distributor, and then if you wanted to edit your cabling, there actually wasn't an obvious way to do this. You had to go back into the build menu to do it. Now, I love the idea of facilities and what they're trying to do, I just don't love the implementation currently. Alright, I'm coming back on an old trusty on this one, it's the UI. the menus disappear. When you're in an existing menu, all of the other menus disappear, and now my muscle memory tells me that I can save time by clicking and swapping between menus into another menu, and now the menus disappear and there's no swapping between the menus. Seriously, same menu some more. Alright, so back to the path tool for this one, because it seemed that we were missing path grids for raised paths. Now this might just be me, I could just chalk it up to being user error, but I couldn't find a way to use the stamp tool whilst it was raised. Now this meant I couldn't tuck the queues into the sides of coaster stations like I'm used to. I'm willing to chalk this one up to user error, but it did bug me enough for me to mention it here. Alright, another niche one incoming for this one, and that's that you can't build backwards. Paths, coasters, pool slides, none of it. Now, as I said, this is niche. I like to build backwards sometimes. I know how I want a ride to end or a queue to be, and I like to build all of that before then building forwards, but it didn't seem like this was a thing. And it also took me ages to find the angle snap tool. Yeah, that one's on me. And guys, full disclosure, muscle memory is going to be a bitch. This is not Planet Coaster 1, and none of the options that you're used to are going to be where you want them to be or you're used to them being. Also, the way that you do things is about to change. For someone like me with 8,000 hours in game, it's going to be quite the difference, but it's not insurmountable. It still feels familiar to the original. If you're new to the game, you're going to love it. You'll transfer with no problems whatsoever. But if you're experienced, just prepare for a learning curve. So we're back to stalls for this one, but actually this is really quite small. It has to be placed on a path. Unlike Zoo, where you can just build them with a building unit and then build with, you have to place them on a path. It's not a game breaker, but it just does restrict you a little bit. This one is such a nitpick. The floating stuff doesn't automatically float. Not like it does in Zoo. Okay, so I'm mad about something that was never, ever promised, but I didn't see any midway games or grabber machines. Now, I might have missed it because there was so much to see, but they weren't obviously in front of my eyes. And sorry guys, no maintenance area, transfer tracks or multiple stations for you guys. Okay, now we're going to get onto the really ugly stuff. The path tool is missing some features, or it might just need some time to get used to. So like raised grid snapping, for example, meant that I couldn't tuck the queues into the stations. I also couldn't work out how to create tight cattle pen queues either. There was also no null path option to go with, and the tool feels big. It feels too big. It feels like there's too many options, and I didn't think I was going to have that criticism, but it could be overwhelming, you know. And some of our frustrations with coasters are also still there. The entry to the splashdowns, the log flume track restrictions, the inability to build backwards, the station behaviours of the entry and exit points. They still persist in the sequel. Now, the coaster builder tool is still good, but some of the original things are still a struggle. And so on to my biggest two gripes of the entire thing. First one, they haven't taken the time, at least not yet, to decorate the inside of the staff buildings. They are still the empty boxes that we know from the original. They now have larger variants of them, but they are also empty inside. Now, full disclosure, we are 2 months from launch. They just might not be in yet, but I think for me, this is one of my biggest disappointments of the day, given that they exist in Zoo. And secondly, the flat ride pads. I'm sorry to say, they are still massive and intrusive, and it's a shame that with the introduction of the path tool that we've got, we couldn't have the ability to draw our own. But do you know what? If that's all I can find to pull apart, then is it really even worth pulling apart? In summary of all of this, Planet Coaster 2 is incredible, and I mean incredible. I'm not even being paid to say that. It is leaps and bounds above the original. It has significantly moved on. It looks amazing, it feels amazing, it plays amazingly. It's got some tweaks to do before launch, of course it does, but wow. I didn't even get a chance to mess around with the management features or the game properly, such as the building and the scenery pieces. That's a whole side of me that is still blind to me. 2 hours really wasn't long enough to explore everything that I wanted to in this game because it is so massive. But I must say, this game feels deeper than the original. I think our content as creators is going to need to change, because if we stick to just building in Sandbox, we are going to be doing the game a massive disjustice. But stay tuned if you do want to see my full unedited mess of gameplay footage. That's coming shortly. I just need to record some voiceover for it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you Frontier for bringing me along on the journey. I will see you for the next one. Take care. I was dared by the guys at work to slip Demure and Brat into this video. Guys, you owe me a tenner.